All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be joined by the one and only Raye of Being Bookish in just a few moments here. But man, I'm finally sitting here in the chair here, and I mean, man, I'm just, man, trying to still almost catch my breath from running around out there on the deck for like 4 hours. It's really, really good to cook live again, though. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it really, really was nice to cook live. Yeah, Yaney. It was really, really nice to cook live again for everybody. I really wish I would have gotten to do more. I really wish I wouldn't have been so crunched for time. But I thought I was going to run out of gas, so I had to go this morning to Lowe's, and I had to stop at the grocery store because I didn't have the bacon or the cheese. And I'm just like, you know, like by the time I got back, like that was all time I could have used to stage stuff and prepare stuff for the event, and I just didn't do it properly. So, at any rate, let me jump over to the other room, and we're gonna get Raye in here, and we're gonna do some. I hope you guys got like a little cold shower thing next to you, so you guys can cool off. But here we go. Let me jump out of here and jump over there. All right. Well, I'm here.
She's
Dan.
coming.
Well,
she's coming.
Not yet. She didn't even start reading yet.
And we're all going to be coming.
I was gonna say she didn't even start reading it. There she is. All right, let's go ahead and let's welcome in the amazing and wonderful Raye from the Being Bookish podcast. I'm gonna go ahead and get the recording started, so that way I think I recorded like 2 segments out of all the segments yesterday. I did so good yesterday, guys. I did the absolute best job. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the start record button and blow it up. Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
Hello, everybody. Oh,
how are you?
I'm not too bad. It's warm.
I'm really glad. Like, there was a nice breeze when I was outside cooking, so I'm like really glad that there was that nice breeze, and the sun, even when the sun was out, wasn't too bad. So
yeah, but it wasn't so great for the salt and pepper and silver foil. And...
That's true. Yeah, the wind did not help. The wind did not help that. So before. Guys, brace yourselves in the chat. Before you get started, let the audience know, in case they're not familiar with you, let them know who you are and what. So you do a very unique thing here on Livestream for the Cure. So let them know what you're going to be doing.
Okay, well, I'm actually doing something slightly different this year. I'm using stick and stick rather than carrot and stick. Yeah, I know. I'm being really cruel. I figured that this year, instead of being nice and rewarding you with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Good Omens, I'm going to start by reading this.
Oh.
So for every single donation, I will stop reading this, and your reward will be bad smut instead.
I mean, if you guys you guys better make it rain. Like, get a cold shower for yourselves and then make it rain in the chat, because otherwise you're gonna have to listen to Twilight.
Yeah, I know. You're not the only one. I actually had to buy this.
Oof.
Because I don't own it. I had a copy and I gave it to my mum. And I went over there last weekend and I said, Mum, do you still have a copy of Twilight? And she looked at me and said, no. Why would I keep that? And I'm thinking, now I've got to buy it. A friend of mine said she'd loan me her copy, but it was signed by Stephanie Meyer, and I thought, yeah, no.
You didn't want to put that energy out there?
One. Somebody's just said Twilight, the book, is much better than the movie. Yes, but that's not really...
We're gonna time Yaney out for the rest of the segment. That's what's gonna happen there.
I will say, though, I do have some very interesting books.
Oh my God.
Including one that involves a knotting.
Involves?
Yes.
I made up that word. That's not even a real word. But I'm gonna back out. So the screen and the floor will be yours. I'll just randomly shout out donations from somewhere out here in the ether. But if you guys have not been present for one of these segments in the past, you're not ready. I promise you, you're not. But it's amazing. So Raye, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
That's a really bad hot take. Rob Zombie's Second Halloween is the best Rob Zombie Halloween movie. Okay. I'm going to really, really.
Whenever you see that name pop up there in the chat, C. Yaney, you just ignore whatever he says. Every time. Every time.
I'm not even going to bother with everything else, including the Bible verse. I'd never given much thought to how I would die, though I'd had reason enough in the last few months. But even if I had, I would not have imagined it like this. I stared without breathing across the long room into the dark eyes of the hunter, and he looked pleasantly back at me. Yeah, okay. Surely it was a good way to die, in the place of someone else, someone I loved. Noble even. That ought to count for something. I knew that if I'd never gone to Forks, I wouldn't be facing death now. But terrified as I was, I couldn't bring myself to regret the decision. When life offers you a dream so far beyond any of your expectations, it's not reasonable to grieve when it comes to an end. The hunter smiled in a friendly way as he sauntered forward to kill me. Someone please. First sight. My mother drove me to the airport with the windows rolled down. It was 75 degrees in Phoenix, the sky a perfect cloudless blue. Seriously, I'm going to have to drink. I was wearing my favourite shirt, sleeveless.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
Yeah, that was me, and I just typed in there for my donation. That was $25 donation. I just typed in no, please God, no.
Thank you. That is torture. I don't know who I'm torturing worse, you or them, you or me. No, he gritted out, parting her flesh with a middle finger and entering her so swiftly with that single digit that she screamed, going up on her toes as she was plastered to the wall by his strong body, his mouth flush with hers. No, I want a lot more from you now. Please, please, please. The shower spray came from over his shoulder and rained water down between them, the fall of warm moisture parting around his hand, where it started to work her, pumping that finger in and out slowly, too slowly, all while he watched her face. He seemed to hunt for every little reaction and exploit it, pressing deeper when she whimpered, pulling back when she started to breathe hard and rock her hips. Please, August, I need something. You'll get it. You'll always get it from me. Just let me enjoy you. The joint of his thumb pressed to her water-slicked clit and rubbed, making her back arch compulsively off the wall, stars dancing in front of her eyes. Jesus Christ, you are so fucking gorgeous, Natalie. Bet you rub expensive lotion and shit all over yourself twice a day to look so. He licked her, from the curve of her shoulder all the way up the side of her neck and jawline, all while pressing his finger high and deep. Damn, it's so smooth you'll slide all over me like a fucking dream, wouldn't you, princess? She couldn't take the dirty talk anymore. It was overwhelming her, along with his touch, which she definitely hadn't expected to be so skilled. And the sudden proof that he'd definitely done this before made her irrationally annoyed. To the point that when he stamped his mouth down over hers, that sounds kind of painful, she bit down on his bottom lip and pulled hard. You're too good at this, she said on an expulsion of breath, then on a quieter breath. I love it, but I hate it. Watching her with a furrowed brow, he slipped his middle finger out, joined it with his ring finger, and rubbed her clit, slowly at first, then with more pressure. I'm getting ahead of myself. Faster, leading to an embarrassingly whiny moan from Natalie that she swore came from someone or somewhere else. And I've lost my place. Tell me why you hate me being good at this, said August, his lips grazing hers side to side, and I'll keep this up until your knees buckle.
Here we go.
Here comes the money.
All right, that was a $20 donation coming in there from Stu from SWO Productions. Yay for Raye and her smut.
I mean, if we don't keep donating, she's going to go back to Twilight. That's the point. Tell me why you hate me being good at this, said August, his lips grazing hers side to side, and I'll keep this up until your knees buckle. I don't want my knees to buckle. Yes, you do. Faster. Oh my God. You know I'm going to catch you. Do I? She whimpered. His teeth snapped at her jaw. He's now a shark? Yes. Damn it, she did know that. Why did she know that? The reason wasn't clear. Nothing was clear right now, save the fact that a fuse had been lit, the fire racing across the ground towards the powder keg that was Natalie's body. Going to blow.
Here comes
Going
the
to
money.
explode.
Here we go.
Here comes the money.
Another $10 donation in there from Joey from the So Wizard podcast. Nobody wants you to go back to Twilight.
In that case, I'm going to find another scene from a different old... I think this might be the knees in the garden. It just wanted that reward of Hallie sighing in relief as he wrestled the spare tire out of her trunk and jacked up her vehicle, dogs and all. And I'm trying to figure out where the heck this is. That's not smart. Tell me we're fucking tonight, Hallie, he gritted out, teeth pressed to her ear. Was your mouth always this dirty? She gasped. No. He urged her down onto the ground and she went, landing flat on her back on top of his spread-out jacket, her curls bouncing out in 90 directions. A sight that made his hands shake. It was so her. And you can blame my colourful vocabulary on the fact that you've been bent over on your knees outside my office window for weeks. He let his weight settle on top of her incredible curves, slowly his breath escaping like air from a tire puncture, his balls throbbing like son of a bitch. Weeks. That is the standard flower planting position. He reached down, gathered the hem of her dress in his hand, and worked it up to her hips, immediately rocking into the space between her thighs, deprived at never having been there before. Being like this, with her, was where he belonged, and God, the way she moaned and arched her back, covered in moonlight and a flush, was the closest he'd ever come to magic. Flowers are the last thing on my mind when you're on all fours, he gritted out, rocking again, gratification thick in his stomach, when she pressed her knees open, grabbed the side of his waistband and pulled, urged, lifted. I'm thinking of your bare ass slapping against my stomach. Great, she stammered in between hot rakes of their open mouths. I'll never be able to do my job again without blushing. Speaking of this blush, Christ, he could barely make out his own words. They were so slurred with lust, muffled into her neck as he traced the line downward with his tongue over the smooth patch behind her ear, the curve of her collarbone, the sweet-smelling hollow of her throat. How far down does it go? I don't know, she breathed. I've never checked. We'd better find out. Julian watched her face closely as he licked a path over the hills of her cleavage, needing to know that they were together in this. Continuing, Hallie, are you wearing that goddamn polka dot bra? Yes, how did you... Groaning, he kissed her stiff nipples through the material of her dress, the fact that she'd worn that tormenting underwear, turning his dick to stone. Let me take it off and suck them, sweetheart. She struggled to pull in a breath. Oh, wow. Key moment to pull out the endearment. He opened his mouth over the stiff bud, raking his lips side to side, groaning when it swelled, grew sharper. I've been calling you that in my head for much longer. Just pull my top down already, she said in a rushing laugh that got his chest so heavily involved in the moment, even more than it already was. He had to press his face between her breasts and steady himself with her rapid-fire heartbeat, inhaling through his nose and out through his mouth until the squeeze turned bearable. Mostly. Julian. Am I? In the Olympic Peninsula of northwest Washington state, a small town named Forks exists under a near-constant cover of clouds. It rains on this inconsequential town more than any other place in the United States of America. It was from this town and its gloomy, omnipresent shade that my mother escaped with me when I was only a few months old. It was in this town that I'd been compelled to spend a month every summer until I was 14. That was the year I finally put my foot down. These past 3 summers, my dad, Charlie, vacationed with me in California for 2 weeks instead. Spoilt brat. It was to Forks that I now exiled myself, an action that I took with great horror. I detested Forks. I loved Phoenix. I loved the sun and the blistering heat. I loved the vigorous, sprawling city. Bella, my mum said to me, the last of 1,000 times before I got on the plane, you don't have to do this. My mum looks like me, except with short hair and laugh lines. I felt a spasm of panic as I stared at her wide, childlike eyes. How could I leave my loving, erratic, harebrained mother to fend for herself? Of course, she had Phil now, so the bills would probably get paid, there would be food in the refrigerator, gas in her car, and someone to call when she got lost. But still, I want to go, I lied. I'd always been a bad liar, but I'd been saying this lie so frequently lately that it sounded almost convincing now. Tell Charlie I said hi. I will. I'll see you soon, she insisted. You can come home whenever you want. I'll come right back as soon as you need me. But I could see the sacrifice in her eyes behind the promise. Don't worry about me, I urged. It'll be great. I love you, Mum. She hugged me tightly for a minute, and then I got on the plane and she was gone.
Here we go.
Here comes the money.
I entirely disagree with the sentiment of this donation, but it says Gerald is fine donated a $10. And then it also said a message, also said Gerald is fine.
Fine as in fine looking or fine as in I'm okay?
He's neither. No, neither.
I want to lie back and look at him, but I want to touch him more. I sit up straighter and hook my fingers in the elastic waistband of his underwear. He leaves his arms hanging at his sides, letting me do what I want. I suck in a sharp breath when I pull down on the material and his cock springs free. Oh my God. I didn't even realize I've murmured the words until he speaks. Don't worry, baby, he says, voice rough. You can take it. I'm not so sure, but I'm no quitter, especially not when I've been waiting for so long. I curl my hand around him. My fingertips don't even come close to touching. Ouch. His sharp intake of breath barely registers. I'm too focused on the sight in front of me. You gonna do something with that? He asks, finally garnering my attention. Or should I show you what I want to do with you? I swallow, searching for my voice. The second one. We can make that happen. He has me flat on my back in a flash, his hips slotted between my thighs, boxer briefs gone. There's nothing between us now. My legs part easily for him. They'd go much further, but they shouldn't, unless I want to find myself in a Belgian emergency room to pop my hip back into place. My stretch marks and surgery scars don't bother me much anymore, but I'm still sheepish about having to advocate for my comfort. I shouldn't be embarrassed, I know that. It's a condition I have no control over, and it's a fact of my life, always will be. And yet I'm flushed from head to toe, trying not to shrink in on myself as I lock eyes with Dev. Be gentle with me, yeah? I whisper, cupping his neck as he braces himself on his forearms. I don't have to ask him. He knows how to handle me. He has for my whole life. Still, I say the words for my own peace of mind. I know you can get your leg behind your head. Stop playing. He punctuates the joke with a soft kiss. Then he pulls back enough to murmur, I promise I'll never hurt you. This man could snap me in half and I'd say thank you. But if I want this to happen again, we have to be careful. Our lips catch and release, lazy and sweet, but our breasts are growing heavy, and my impatience takes over again. As if he can sense it, Dev runs a hand down my body and dips 2 fingers into me, and a moan falls from my lips. You ready? Please, I choke out. That's all the encouragement he needs. He flicks his thumb over my clit as he drags his fingers back out. My wetness glistens on them as he grips himself and aligns with my opening. Oh God, this is it. The head of his cock nudges against me, meeting a little resistance as he notches inside. I breathe through it at his murmured insistence in my ear, and soon I'm lifting my hips for more. He sinks into me inch by inch, giving me time to adjust to the feel of him, to the way he stretches me, fills me. I expected pain or more discomfort. It's been so long since the last time I had sex, and there's no way around it. He's huge. But he does it with such ease and care that I'm convinced we were made for each other. And those books are a very, very large pile. She hugged me tightly for a minute and then I got on the plane and she was gone. It's a 4-hour flight from Phoenix to Seattle, another hour in a small plane up to Port Angeles, and then an hour drive back down to Forks. Flying doesn't bother me, the hour in the car with Charlie, though, I was a little worried about. Charlie had really been fairly nice about the whole thing. He seemed genuinely pleased that I was coming to live with him for the first time with any degree of permanence. He'd already gotten me registered for high school and was going to help me get a car. But it was sure to be awkward with Charlie. Neither of us was what anyone would call verbose, and I didn't know what there was to say regardless. I knew he was more than a little confused by my decision, like my mother before me. I hadn't made a secret of my distaste for forks. When I landed in Port Angeles, it was raining. I didn't see it as an omen, just unavoidable. I'd already said my goodbyes to the sun. Charlie was waiting for me with the cruiser. This I was expecting too. Charlie is Police Chief Swan to the good people of Forks. My primary motivation behind buying a car, despite the scarcity of my funds, was that I refused to be driven around town in a car with red and blue lights on top. Nothing slows down traffic like a cop. Charlie gave me an awkward one-armed hug when I stumbled my way off the plane. "It's good to see you, Bells," he said, smiling as he automatically caught and steadied me. "You haven't changed much. How's Renee?" "Mum's fine. It's good to see you too, Dad." I wasn't allowed to call him Charlie to his face. I had only a few bags. Most of my Arizona clothes were too permeable for Washington. My mum and I had pulled our resources to supplement my winter wardrobe, but it was still scanty. It all fit easily into the trunk of the cruiser. "I found a good car for you, really cheap," he announced when we were strapped in. "What kind of car?" I was suspicious of the way he said "good car for you," as opposed to just "good car." "Well, it's a truck, actually. A Chevy." "Where did you find it?" "Do you remember Billy Black down in La Push?" La Push is the tiny Indian reservation on the coast. "No." "He used to go fishing with us during the summer," Charlie prompted. That would explain why I didn't remember him. I do a good job of blocking painful, unnecessary things from my memory. "He's in a wheelchair now," Charlie continued when I didn't respond, "so he can't drive anymore, and he offered to sell me his truck cheap." "What year is it?" I could see from his change of expression that this was the question he was hoping I wouldn't ask. "Well, Billy's done a lot of work on the engine. It's only a few years old, really." I hoped he didn't think of me as so little of me as to believe I would give up that easily. "When did he buy it?" "He bought it in 1984, I think." "Did he buy it new?" "Well, no, I think it was new in the early 60s or late 50s at the earliest," he admitted sheepishly. "Dad, I don't really know anything about cars. I wouldn't be able to fix it if anything went wrong, and I couldn't afford a mechanic." "Really, Bella, the thing runs
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
I can't take it anymore. $25 donation from me for no more Twilight, for the love of God.
Yeah, you're not the only one who's feeling that way. Seriously. It's like, I'm punishing myself more than I'm punishing anybody else. Okay. This is the one we've been talking about.
Uh-oh.
He grunts grateful and licks a long stripe up my spine and into my nape. He's vocal in his pleasure, vocal in his praise, and even though I don't fully understand it, this is a thing for him. Something important and consuming and maybe even necessary. His hand pins my wrist again above my head, as though he needs to know that I'm here to stay. I struggle against his hold just to test it. "Be good." Low clicks his tongue. "You're all right, aren't you, misery?" "Yeah," I breathe. "Nice, very. I'm profoundly obsessed with these." I feel hot air against my skin and realise he's talking about my ears. Are they sensitive? I don't think. His teeth closed around the tip and it's like a current passing through me. "I see that they are," he drawls. His cock presses harder against my arse and his lips drift back to my nape over and over again, like he cannot help himself, like it's the centre of gravity in my body. I remember the plane, how close he got to losing control when he first touched me there. "Do bears have a gland there?" I ask, words muffled into the sheets. I'm more wet than I can remember being. If this is the hottest thing I'll ever experience, I'd love to know why. "It's complicated." He sucks a mark into the knob at the top of my spine, and I make a guttural sound. Then he does. There's some fumbling behind me. His belt unbuckled, the zipper of his jeans lowered, and after a few seconds of rustling, his cock splits the cheeks of my arse, pushing between them. It's wet and hot, rubbing up and down for the right amount of friction. Low makes a stupefied sound. Condom, I gasp. Not something vampires ever use, but maybe wares do. Do you have one? He goes back for one last nibble before turning me around. No. His eyes glow with determined, reflected light as he takes off my leggings. He stares down at me with a transfixed look that strikes me as the culmination of many things I'll never hear about. And when he bends down to lick my collarbone, I feel how hard he is leaking against my stomach. The heat of him feeds my hunger for blood in a confusing, beautiful build-up. But do you want to use something? I ask. We don't need to, he says, pushing up my shirt. This time he bites. His bite is on the side of my breast. His tongue circles around my nipple before pressing flat against it. Then he sucks, mouth wet and electrifying. Stop! I force myself to stay. He instantly pulls back, holding himself up on his palms, peeling his gaze from my chest with some difficulty. We don't have to, he pants. I do, but I prop myself up on my elbows. My shirt slips to cover the curve of my breast. Low's eyes wander down again until he tears them toward the window. Why don't you want to use contraceptives? If wares and humans can reproduce, nothing is off the table. We can't, if you'd like, but we can't have sex. We can't? Not like that. I sit up, pulling down my shirt, and he shifts back, sitting on his knee. Stare at each other, breathing heavily like we're in the middle of a Regency-era duel. Maybe we should discuss this. His throat bobs. We're not compatible like that, Misery, he says. He says this as though he knows it to be a fact, one he's given a lot of thought to. My eyebrow lifts. If Anna exists, it must be feasible. It's different. Why? Because I'm a vampire. I look down at the way I'm clutching the hem of my oversized shirt like it's a life raft. What we need here is some humour to diffuse. I swear I don't have teeth down there. He doesn't smile. You are not the problem. I wait for him to continue. He doesn't. What's the problem? I don't want to hurt you. I glance at his groin. He pulled his underwear back up. It's tented and the room is dark, and my view is not exhaustive by any means. But he looks normal. Good. Big. Sure. But normal. I remember what he told me about Switzerland, the way different species live together. He said he didn't hang out much with vampires, but have you ever with a human? He nods. And you hurt them? No. Then it will be different. We're discussing sex, right? Penetrative intercourse. This insurmountable obstacle he's talking about must be located somewhere between his and my hardware, except that he seems structurally standard. I grew up with a human. My reproductive organs don't significantly differ from humans who are assigned female at birth. It's not because you're vampire, Misery. It's because you're you, because of what that does to me. I don't understand. He interrupts me with a kiss, bruising in a delicious, unhinged way. He cups my face, pulling at my lower lip, and I lose track of our conversation. You're going to smell like this. It's happened already and you weren't even in the fucking room. And I'm not going to be able to stop myself from wanting to finish. That's fine, I laugh. My forehead settles against his. I want you to finish. Misery, we are different species. I close my fingers around his... You said we would in Emery's office. I'm blushing, embarrassed to admit that I've been thinking about those words for days.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
Here comes
No
the
more,
money.
please. I saw in there with another $10 donation from Gerald is fine.
Is that no more of this or no more of Twilight?
Just no more Twilight.
Okay. I said I could fuck you, his throat works, not that I would. I lower my eyes. Were you ever planning to tell me that we couldn't have sex? Misery. His eyes capture mine, and I suspect he can see everything, the very inside of me. It's sex, what we've done, what we're going to do. It's all sex, and it's all going to feel really good. I believe him, I really do, and yet, are you sure that you and I can't... I can show you. Would you like me to? I nod. He kisses me again, tenderly, clearly trying to take things slowly. I'm the one to wriggle away to take off my shirt. Have you done this before? He asks against the crook of my neck. And I shake my head. He'd never judge me for it, but I want to explain. It felt weird doing this with a human when I was already lying to them about everything, and vampires were never an option. I was always alone at the border between those two worlds. The fact that I felt more at home than ever before with someone whose proximity I should never have been in. There's something wrong about it, or painfully right. Feed more, he orders, pushing me down on the bed. We end up on our sides, facing each other, not a position I'd associate with wild and uninhibited sexual activities. If I feed, we can't. But with a hand on the back of my head, he guides my face into his neck. We can. He kicks his jeans away and it's just his skin hot against mine, the rough hairs on his arms and legs subtly foreign. I slip my shin between his knees and let my hand roam, curious, eager to explore. He is gloriously different, and while I'm not one to admire beauty, I cannot stop thinking that I like him, the way he looks, the way he feels, the way he likes me. The slight tremble in his fingers as they settle on my waist, the muscles of his body tightening with patient anticipation. You're so beautiful, he murmurs into my temple. I thought so since they gave me the first picture of you. You came walking down the aisle and I was afraid to look. I hadn't even smelled you yet, and I already couldn't stop myself from staring. Sinking my teeth into him is becoming second nature. His flavour, it's lovely and familiar. I don't let myself wonder how I'll go back to chili bags. I just take deep, blissful gulps, and when I hear his drawn-out vibrating moan, when his hand drags my wrist to his cock and closes my fingers around it, I'm happy and pliant and eager to please. He is hard but also soft and doesn't want much. He guides my hand up and down and once more, and beyond that he has no instructions for me. My touch appears to be enough, just like the rest of me. I'm going to come really fast, he puffs out. I let go of his vein with a wet pop. You don't have to. He laughs, rocking into my fist. Not much of a choice. He tightens my grip, giving him the pressure he's craving, and then I'll show you what you do to me. Whatever he needs, I want the same. One of his thighs wedges between mine and I rub myself against it, vaguely embarrassed at the lewd rhythmic sounds the contact makes, at the mess I'm making on him, but it feels too good to stop and good enough to forget, and then even better when his hand kneads my breasts, moves to the small of my back to cant my hips, positioning me so that, yes, there, I hum the word into his neck around mouthfuls of blood. I'm shameless and dizzy and briefly happy, grinding and searching for pleasure like it's something he has in store for me, not if, just when. I take one last drag and swallow, and then ask, is this good? Lowe's eyes stare unseeing into mine, and the fact that he seems too awestruck to be able to speak, the choppy, uncoordinated way he tries to nod his pleasure, that's what pushes me over. I let out a low, resonant whimper and my orgasm spreads like a wave of heat. My breaths shorten, my vision narrows, and then I'm shuddering all over Lowe's thigh, rolling against him like a wild creature. I forget about what I was doing for him, the rhythm I was keeping, the twisty, lingering touch he enjoys. But even then, just seeing and hearing my pleasure seems to do it for him. His arm tightens around me. His cock becomes harder, his mouth against mine chants a string of obscene, pleading things about how much he wants this, how beautiful I am, how he'll always think of me when he does this from now on till the day he dies. His semen is hot on my fingers, on my belly. The sound in his throat belonged to someone that lives on the underbrush of the forest, someone lost to rational thought. It's beautiful, I think, not just the pleasure, but sharing it with someone else. And then the things he's saying change. Unlike my orgasm, which bloomed and exploded and ebbed, his lasts, crests, and low shivers and pants and groans through it before he asks me, you want to know? I nod, still out of breath. His hand comes down to guide mine lower on his cock until we reach the base. Shit. His cheeks are flushed, head tilted back. I don't immediately understand, not until his soft skin changes. Something inflates under my palm. Lowe's hand closes around mine, pressing it there, circling the swelling protuberance like all he wants is for it to be enclosed, held within something. It grows larger, and Lowe's stifled moans grow louder. And misery. He's saying my name like a prayer, like I'm the one thing standing between him and heaven and earth. And that's when I understand what he meant. Sexually, he and I might not be fully compatible. How cheap is cheap? After all that was the part I couldn't compromise on. Well, honey, I kind of already bought it for you as a homecoming gift. Charlie peeked sideways at me with a hopeful expression. Wow, free? You didn't need to do that, Dad. I was going to buy myself a car. If I'm going to be reading this, I need more drink. I don't mind. I want you to be happy here. He was looking ahead at the road when he said this. Charlie wasn't comfortable with expressing his emotions out loud. I inherited that from him, so I was looking straight ahead as I responded. That's really nice, Dad. Thanks. I appreciate it. No need to add that my being happy in Forks is an impossibility. He didn't need to suffer along with me, and I never looked a free truck in the mouth. Or engine. Well, now, you're welcome, he mumbled, embarrassed by my thanks. We exchanged a few more comments on the weather, which was wet, and that was pretty much it for conversation. We stared out the windows in silence. It was beautiful, of course. I couldn't deny that. Everything was green, the trees, their trunks covered with moss, their branches hanging with a canopy of it, the ground covered with ferns. Even the air filtered down greenly through the leaves. It was too green. An alien planet. Eventually we made it to Charlie's. He still lived in the small 2-bedroom house that he bought with my mother in the early days of their marriage. Those were the only kind of days their marriage had, the early ones. There, parked on the street in front of the house that never changed, was my new, well, me.
So I donated that $25 and I said, whatever you're drinking isn't strong enough.
It really isn't. It's wine.
Pour some scotch into it or something.
Oh my God, are you joking?
That'd be terrible.
That would be
Don't do that.
That would be vile.
Just trade it for scotch.
Right. The hair between her legs was dark amber. The other night he hadn't been able to see that. It shone in the lamplight, a beacon guiding him closer. She widened her stance, parting those luscious thighs, and his next breath audibly shook. Do you want to touch me, Matthew? Dazed, he lifted his stare to meet hers. He couldn't say a word, and he didn't have to. Evidently, his expression told her what she needed to know. With one hand, she still had held her skirt high. Her other hand guided his between her thighs, dropping away once he carefully cupped her. Crisp pubic hair framing skin softer than a hellebor's petal. Heat. Dampness. Only days ago he'd watched, mesmerized as she'd stroked herself to orgasm, but this moment eclipsed that memory. All there had ever been, was Athena's rosemary and saline scent, her open legs and his thumb gently parting her vulva, stroking down the intimate seam of her body. He dropped to his knees before her, and she inhaled sharply. Wrapping an arm around her hip, he pressed his forehead against the velvety swell of her bare lower belly. Her hand tunneled through his hair in a soothing caress, even as his fingertips rubbed slowly up and down, learning the intimate geography of her most vulnerable flesh. When he smoothed his thumb lightly over her clitoris, she made a small needy sound deep in her throat. Her knees began to tremble unsteadily, and slickness coated his fingers. Good. Good. Lay back, love, he eventually whispered against her stomach. Stay near the edge. Bending down, she pressed a fierce, lingering kiss to the crown of his head, then settled her upper body onto the mattress. He didn't let himself think about it a moment longer. He simply glided his palms up her legs, then urged them over his shoulders. His head would be a tight fit between those thighs, and he was glad. He wanted to swamp himself in her for months. He nuzzled against her one pillowy inner thigh, then the other. I won't be able to hear you well. If you like something I do, pull my hair. If you don't, tap my head or push me away, okay? Matthew. Propping herself on her elbow, she looked at him, her breasts rising and falling with her rapid breaths. Forgive my crudeness, baby, but please hurry up and eat me. This time his brain didn't go dark. It flashed white, the blinding white of total blankness. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he murmured once he'd regathered himself. "I don't intend to hurry." He didn't want to rush anything about this, and Athena might sometimes be impatient with herself, but he refused to follow her lead. She deserved all his time and attention, and she'd get both right now. With one hand he stroked the silky skin of her leg, with the other he spread her vulva for his tongue. Leaning forward, he let her thighs block out the world. The only sound was his own heartbeat, his own harsh, excited breathing. Her scent filled his lungs, and he licked her in an unhurried, deliberate sweep, from her vagina to her clitoris. Is it just me, or is this really clinical?
An unhurried, deliberate sweep? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very, very clinical. She wasn't sweet. She was salty and tart, and he wanted to devour her whole. He could have been in the other book. With his second ravenous lick, he moaned against her, and her entire body jerked. Her fingers tangled in his hair, not quite pulling. Close enough, though. Emboldened, he dragged his tongue through the folds of her vulva in measured strokes, then drew the delicate pleats of flesh between his lips and tugged gently. Moving upward, he hummed softly against her clit. Her legs spread wider at that, her hips rising to meet the vibration. He was throbbing for her, hard and ecstatic, so happy it felt like pain. Stay there. Come on, guys, I will read this, and I will continue reading it until my brains explode. There, parked in the street in front of the house that never changed, was my new to me, truck. It was a faded red colour with big rounded fenders and a bulbous cap. To my intense surprise, I loved it. I didn't know if it would run, but I could see myself in it. Plus, it was one of those solid iron affairs that never get damaged. The kind you see at the scene of an accident, paint unscratched, surrounded by the pieces of the foreign car it had destroyed. I'm sorry, Nick. I'm so sorry. Wow, Dad. I love it. Thanks. Now my horrific day tomorrow would be just that much less dreadful. I wouldn't be faced with the choice of either walking 2 miles in the rain to school or accepting a ride in the Chief's cruiser. I'm glad you like it, Charlie said, gruffly, embarrassed again. It took only one trip to get all my stuff upstairs. I got the west bedroom that faced out over the front yard. The room was familiar. It had belonged to me since I was born. The wooden floor, the light blue walls, the peaked ceiling, the yellowed lace curtains around the window, those were all a part of my childhood. The only changes Charlie had ever made were switching the crib for a bed and adding a desk as I grew. The desk now contained a second-hand computer with the phone line for the modem stapled along the floor to the nearest phone jack. This was a stipulation from my mother so that we could stay in touch easily. The rocking chair from my baby days was still in the corner. There was only one small bathroom at the top of the stairs, which I would have to share with Charlie. I was trying not to dwell too much on that fact. Spoilt cow. One of the best things about Charlie is he doesn't hover. He left me alone to unpack and get settled, a feat that would have been altogether impossible for my mother. It was nice to be alone, not to have to smile and look pleased. A relief to stare dejectedly out the window at the sheeting rain and just let a few tears escape. I wasn't in the mood to go on a real crying jag. I would save that for bedtime, when I would have to think about the coming morning and the stalker you're about to meet. Forks High School had a frightening total of only 357, now 58 students. There were more than 700 people in my junior class alone back home. All of the kids had grown up together. Their grandparents had been toddlers together. I would be the new girl from the big city, a curiosity, a freak. Maybe if I looked like a girl from Phoenix I could work this to my advantage, but physically I'd never fit in anywhere. I should be tan, sporty, blonde, a volleyball player or a cheerleader perhaps, all the things that go with living in the Valley of the Sun. Instead, I was ivory-skinned without even the excuse of blue eyes or red hair, despite the constant sunshine. I'd always been slender but soft somehow, obviously not an athlete. I didn't have the necessary hand-eye coordination to play sports without humiliating myself and harming both myself and anyone else who stood too close. I'm not like other girls. When I finished putting my clothes in the old pine dresser, I took my bag of bathroom necessities and went to the communal bathroom to Please, come on. Seriously, you can't like this. And if you do, why? I've read 9 pages and I want to skewer my eyes out. I looked at my face in the mirror as I brushed through my tangled, damp hair. Maybe it was the light, but already I looked sallower, unhealthy. My skin could be pretty. It was very clear, almost translucent looking, but it all depended on colour. I had no colour here. Seriously? Why? This is punishment. Such punishment. Facing my pallid reflection in the mirror, I was forced to admit I was lying to myself. It wasn't just physically that I'd never fit in. And if I couldn't find a niche in a school with 300,000 people, what were my chances here? I didn't relate well to people my age. Maybe the truth was that I didn't relate well to people, period. Even my mother, who I was closer to than anyone else on the planet, was never in harmony with me, never on exactly the same page. And that's why she left you. Sometimes I wondered if I was seeing the same things through my eyes that the rest of the world was seeing through theirs. Maybe there was a glitch in my brain. But the cause didn't matter. All that mattered was the effort. And tomorrow would just be the beginning. I didn't sleep well that night, even after I was done crying. The constant whooshing of the rain and wind across the roof couldn't fade into the background. I pulled the faded old quilt over my head and later added the pillow too, but I couldn't fall asleep until after midnight when the rain finally settled into a quieter drizzle.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
Here comes the money.
M from Verbal Dioramas here to save the day with a $10 donation.
Oh, thank God.
I just swung by to donate. I have no sound. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you were in the loo, I bet, Yaney. Uh-huh.
You were in the loo. Wow, that's a very English way to say it.
You're better
God.
off, Em. You're better off.
Oh, yeah. You're definitely better off. With his second ravenous lick, he moaned against her, and her entire body jerked. Her fingers tangled in his hair, not quite pulling. Close, though. Emboldened, he dragged... I think I've already read this bit. Yes, I did, didn't I say about measured strokes? Slowly, he began to learn. She didn't like teeth, not even a gentle graze. She did like when he tenderly sucked her stiffening clitoris. She shivered when he dipped his tongue inside her, and for all her impatience, it wasn't until the tip of that tongue traced a leisurely, lingering circle around her clit that her fingers in his hair curled into fists. The sharp pull detonated down the length of his spine, and he could have come from that alone. As her vulva turned puffy and swollen under his attention, he teased her entrance with a fingertip, swirling around and around, until she was straining against the slight pressure. Gradually, he pressed 2 fingers inside her, rubbing against her inner walls as he sank deep. An easy pump of his hand, a slight twist of his wrist, and she turned molten around him, grinding against the penetration. He hoped he'd learned enough about her preferences that he could make her come in another minute or 2 of focused effort, but he had all the time in the world for her. I don't think they do. I really don't think they do. She was so slippery and so fucking delicious. He was becoming increasingly convinced that when the ancient Romans referred to ambrosia, they meant pussy. Well, actually, most of the ancient Romans were gay. When his jaw began to hurt, he could not have given less of a shit, but eventually he wasn't sure how much longer he could hold on to his control. Besides, the sooner Athena had her first orgasm, the sooner he could start working on her second. When he scissored his fingers inside her vagina, she jolted, her legs restlessly moving over his shoulders. Another unhurried, measured suck of her hard little clit. Another relaxed, tongue-tipped circle around and around again as she squirmed. Another stroke against the spot on her vaginal wall where she was most sensitive, where firm pressure made her quiver against his knuckles. He's a virgin, this character. He laid the flat of his tongue against her clitoris and rubbed slowly, and Athena went rigid, her thigh tensing under his caressing palm as she arched and trembled. Her fingers on his hair tightened, setting his scalp ablaze. Then she exploded into climax, her vagina clamping around his fingers as she twitched against his gliding tongue. Even with his fingers covered, her hoarse cry vibrated through them both. With fierce hands, she shoved him harder against her pussy as she came, fucking his face like the goddess she was. He couldn't breathe. He was pretty sure he'd pulled something in his neck, and his jaw burned like fire, but even in his dreams he hadn't imagined this glory. He couldn't wait to do it again, and again, and yes, please God, again. Yeah, she's going to be sore.
I said these were written by dudes who've never touched a vagina and think they'll get a woman off just by touching her.
This was written by a woman.
Was it really?
Yes.
God help me.
This was written by a woman, which is kind of depressing. Breakfast with Charlie was a quiet event. He wished me good luck at school. I thanked him, knowing his hope was wasted. Good luck tended to avoid me. Charlie left first, off to the police station that was his wife and family. After he left, I sat at the old square oak table in one of the 3 unmatching chairs and examined his small kitchen with its dark panelled walls, bright yellow cabinets, and white linoleum floor. Nothing was changed. My mother had painted the cabinets 18 years ago in an attempt to bring some sunshine into the house. Over the small fireplace in the adjoining handkerchief-sized family room was a row of pictures. First a wedding picture of Charlie and my mum in Las Vegas, then one of the 3 of us in the hospital after I was born, taken by a helpful nurse, followed by the procession of my school pictures up to last year's. Those were embarrassing to look at. I would have to see what I could do to get Charlie to put them somewhere else, at least while I was living here. It was impossible, being in this house, not to realise that Charlie had never gotten over my mum. It made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to be too early to school, but I couldn't stay in the house anymore. I donned my jacket, which had the feel of a biohazard suit, and headed out into the rain. It was just drizzling still, not enough to soak me through immediately, as I reached for the house key that was always hidden under the eaves by the door and locked up. The sloshing of my new waterproof boots was unnerving. I missed the normal crunch of gravel as I walked. I couldn't pause and admire my truck again as I wanted. I was in a hurry to get out of the misty, wet rain that swirled around my head and clung to my hair under my hood. Inside the truck it was nice and dry. Either Billy or Charlie had obviously cleaned it up, but the tan upholstered seats still smelled faintly of tobacco, gasoline, and peppermint. The engine started quickly, to my relief, but loudly, roaring to life and then idling at top volume. Well, a truck this old was bound to have a flaw. The antique radio worked, a plus that I hadn't expected. Finding the school wasn't difficult, though I'd never been there before. The school was, like most other things, just off the highway. It was not obvious that it was a school, only the sign which declared it to be Forks High School made me stop. It looked like a collection of matching houses built with macaroon-coloured bricks. There were so many trees and shrubs I couldn't see its size at first. Where was the feel of the institution, I wondered nostalgically? Where were the chain-link fences, the metal detectors? I parked in front of the first building, which had a small sign over the door, reading front office. No one else was parked there, so I was sure it was off limits, but I decided I would get directions inside instead of circling around in the rain like an idiot. I stepped unwillingly out of the toasty truck cab and walked down a little stone path lined with dark hedges. I took a deep breath before opening the door. Inside it was brightly lit and warmer than I'd hoped. Seriously, you cannot like this. The office was small, a little waiting area with padded folding door chairs, orange flecked commercial carpet, notices and awards cluttering the walls, a big clock ticking loudly. Plants grew everywhere in large plastic pots, as if there weren't enough greenery outside. The room was cut in half by a long counter cluttered with wire baskets full of papers and brightly coloured flyers taped to the front. There were 3 desks behind the counter, one of which was manned by a large red-haired woman wearing glasses. She was wearing a purple t-shirt, which immediately made me feel overdressed. The red-haired woman looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm Isabella Swan," I informed her, and saw the immediate awareness light her eyes. I was expected, a topic of gossip, no doubt, daughter of the chief's flighty ex-wife come home at last. "Of course," she said. She dug through a precariously stacked pile of documents on her desk till she found the ones she was looking for. "I have your schedule right here, and a map of the school." She brought several sheets to the counter to show me. She went through my classes for me, highlighting the best route to each one on the map, and gave me a slip to have each teacher sign, which I was to bring back at the end of the day. A big clock. This is Twilight, not the porn. So seriously, I don't know what's worse. I think this is worse. She smiled at me and hoped, like Charlie, that I would like it here in Forks. I smiled back as convincingly as I could. Oh, no. When I went back to my truck, other students were starting to arrive. I drove around the school, following the line of traffic. I was glad to see that most of the cars were older, like mine. Nothing flashy. At home, I'd lived in one of the few lower-income neighbourhoods that were included in the Paradise Valley district. It was a common thing to see a new Mercedes or Porsche in the student lot. The nicest car here was a shiny Volvo, and it stood out. Still, I cut the engine as soon as I was in a spot, so that the thunderous volume wouldn't draw attention to me. I looked at the map in the truck, trying to memorise it now. Hopefully, I wouldn't have to walk around with it stuck in front of my nose all day. I stuffed everything in my bag, slung the strap over my shoulder, and sucked in a huge breath. I can do this, I lied to myself feebly. No one was going to bite me. I finally exhaled and stepped out of the truck. Once I got around the cafeteria, Building 3 was easy to spot. A large black 3 was painted on a white square on the east corner. I felt my breath gradually creeping towards hyperventilation as I approached the door. I tried holding my breath as I followed 2 unisex raincoats through the door. The classroom was small. The people in front of me stopped just inside the door to hang up their coats on a long row of hooks. I copied them. There were 2 girls, one a porcelain-coloured blonde, the other also pale with light brown hair. At least my skin wouldn't be a standout here. I took the slip up to the teacher, a tall, balding man whose desk had a nameplate identifying him as Mr. Mason. He gawked at me when he saw my name. Not an encouraging response. And of course I flushed tomato red. But at least he sent me to an empty desk at the back without introducing me to the class. It was harder for my new classmates to stare at me in the back. But somehow they managed. I kept my eyes down on the reading list the teacher had given me. It was fairly basic. Bronte, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Faulkner. I'd already read everything. That was comforting and boring. I wondered if my mum would send me my folders of old essays, or if she would think that was cheating. I went through different arguments with her in my head while the teacher droned on.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
Gerald is fine. Another $10 donation, because I don't think Dan can take it anymore.
Mm-hmm. And you think you're the only one. Athena literally saw stars when she came, bright plumes of light flashing behind her eyelids like she was a cartoon character who just had an anvil dropped on her head. Her anvil was named Matthew. He didn't drop on her head. He did, however, give phenomenal head. She lay sprawled on his mattress, every muscle limp, as he gently licked her through the last few pulses of orgasm. Absently, she petted his head as she scrambled for sanity. How? How had he done that? A lot of guys managed to get a woman off once using a particular technique, spelling the alphabet with their tongue, humming Chiquitita against her clit, whatever, and sort of decided, well, that's it, I guess my one true oral technique, no need to experiment further. Every woman thereafter got the same treatment, the same trick employed in pursuit of her climax, over and over again, until the whole experience became a routine rather than a joint exploration of what gave them both pleasure. Rub tab A over slot B, suck like Roomba C, and voila! Cunnilingus achieved. But Matthew, he tried everything and anything she might enjoy, then paid attention to her responses. One tap on the side of his head, and he made sure his teeth stayed far, far away from her pussy. One pull of his hair, and he understood at basically the same time she did those dawdling, agonizing circles around her clit. Fucking destroyed her. So he'd rub her legs soothingly as he wrecked her in super slow motion with his tongue, like a horny sloth who really loved the taste of pussy, until she nearly ripped out his damn hair when she came. His longer curly hair was really fun to pull. In silent apology, she petted him again, and he rumbled contentedly against her inner thigh. Yes, a horny sloth. Matthew, she managed to raise her head an inch, then dropped back to the mattress in defeat. I can't compete with that. You are the undisputed champion of head. Long may he reign and long may he lick. But I'm happy to go down on you if you'd like, or you can grab a condom and get inside the pussy you now own. Congratulations, by the way. The owner's manual will arrive in your inbox shortly. After one last kiss to her inner knee, he stood with a slight groan and peered down at her, his talented mouth wet, his brown eyes bright and happy. You enjoyed that? Enjoyed is such a pallid word, baby. She scooted back like an inchworm, then grabbed his shoulders and tugged him up and onto the mattress. If a normal climax is a jalapeno, that was a ghost pepper intensity orgasm. Or, wait, maybe a Carolina Reaper. She frowned. Whichever is higher in Scoville heat units. Remind me to check with Professor Google about that later. This is a random conversation. He was kneeling between her legs on the bed, a slow grin spreading across his face. He looked...
I always stop in the middle of bedroom activities to talk about the Scoville scale, okay? I don't know what the hell y'all are talking about.
It might be one of yours.
Come on now.
He was kneeling between her legs on the bed, a slow grin spreading across his face. He looked damn good there. Okay. Sadly, he was still wearing his pants, so he actually took out his notebook from a back pocket and scrawled a reminder. Done. Time to get naked, fine. Clambering to her own knees, she whipped her dress over her head and wrestled off her wireless bra. Entirely nude, she piled a few pillows near the headboard and reclined to watch the show. I've spent the last several months contemplating the biteable curve of your ass inside those suit pants you always wear, and it's unfair to tease me with it any longer. His cheeks darkened with a flush. All right. With meticulous care, his eyes fixed on his task, he unfastened his cuffs, then tugged at them to remove the shirt, keeping it right side out. After folding it, he leaned over to place the neat bundle on his nightstand beside the flowers. Sparse dark hair sprinkled his hard chest and arrowed down the centre of his torso, pointing toward his abdomen. Since he'd begun feeding her, he'd filled out some. He was still lean, but those surprisingly broad shoulders seemed sturdy rather than angular, and his entire upper body looked slightly, delightfully thicker. What the hell? He folds his clothes.
I'll get inside of you in just 1 minute, honey. Did you know that the Carolina Reaper is spicier than the ghost pepper? What if I got down there, like, it's going to turn into a conversation of, like, what if I got down there and made some salsa? Or, like, I don't... Yaney needs a hero, apparently.
Yeah, it's just... No.
Did you pop off to the loo again, Yaney?
It's the fact that they have that conversation in the middle of the act, but then he folds his clothes. Wait a moment, I don't want to have to iron this tomorrow.
Who would? Probably going to wear the same clothes to work the next day. I mean, you're amazing, as always. Absolutely, absolutely incredible. But before you run away, can you please let everybody know where they can find you out there on the web?
Okay, well, you can find me on my website, which is https://beingbookish.co.uk, and I'm also now on YouTube because I'm insane, and I'm there as @beingbookish_pod because I'm definitely insane and I have nothing to do with my time. Because editing videos, as everyone will tell you, takes 5 minutes.
Not even that.
Yeah, it's a really quick thing. You just
editing?
record it and yeah.
No. Not even.
Because I didn't have anything else to do with my time at all apart from read.
Yeah, Yani's right.
Overrated, I agree.
Yeah, Sanity's overrated. Well, thank you so much for once again being back here to delight and tantalize us, and then also to torment us horribly by reading Stephanie Meyer at us.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I was tormenting them or me.
Raise your hand in the chat if you feel tormented by Stephanie Meyer or Twilight. Anybody over there? I'm just gonna assume all your hands are up. Maybe if you're AFK, I'm just gonna assume your hands up, and you decided to, not to ring in. Thank you so much for being here. You're absolutely incredible, and we love having you every single year. Well, I know Yaney loved it doubly for sure, but
well, it's because he absolutely loved Twilight for some reason.
My hands are busy from the other book. God.
Is that because you liked the talk of folding laundry?
Doing what the guy did in the other book.
California Reaper and the Carolina Reaper and Scotch bonnets.
I could do that. I should do that. Like, chat, we're going to play some games here in just a moment here, chat, but, we get a little bit more donations. I'm going to spin that wheel on I don't even know where I put that thing. Oh, it's over there. I was like, I don't even know where I put it yesterday. That's not what you said earlier, Yaney.
No. It was Twilight. The book is so much better than the film, apparently.
All of Stephanie Meyer's deep character development and prose.
Yeah, the irony being she made less money from her books than E.L. James made from her fanfics of the books.
It's crazy. You too, ladies and gentlemen, all you got to do is find the right idea. That's all it goes to show you. Oh, my goodness gracious. Raye, thank you so much. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. Once again, everybody, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Everybody go catch a quick shower. And then we'll be back. We'll play some stream games for a little bit until we get to the 7:00 hour. Okay? Bye, Raye.
Bye. 2 notes for eclipse.
Don't even, come on now. I gotta go. I'm actually gonna go outside and turn the hose on myself. Just to take it down a notch. Because, you know how it is. It's cray-cray.